name's Brendan O'Sullivan, a Toastmaster from Brisbane, Australia. Welcome to my Toastmasters World Tour podcast. Please join me as I travel virtually around the world and chat to Toastmasters from different countries and all walks of life. Let's explore! For this episode of Toastmasters World Tour, we're still virtually in the Emerald Isle, in Cork, Ireland, chatting to Paul O'Mahony. Listen in to hear the conclusion of the same chat started in the last episode for Paul's insights into podcasting, storytelling, and learn from his honest self-reflections. So getting back to the podcasting, I'm just intrigued about doing it live with your phone because I'd love to give that a crack. Do you hold the phone a bit like a microphone, sort of back and forth between you two? Or?
Yes. I mean, it's if you're opposite me, so I say to you, how many Toastmasters meetings have you ever been in your life?
Yes.
Been to in your life? Yeah. And give the person the camera. No, it's not as perfect as it could be. If I had an external mic, yes, I could put a mic on the other person. No problem at all. It can easily be done through mic. And that would be better, I guess. Yeah. But I have done so many podcast episodes right back in 2007 onwards. You know, once they're probably doing about 3 episodes a day. I was just ridiculous, the amount of audio that I took to doing. You'll get a good enough sound. And, you know, try it. Just do it. Experiment. See what happens.
I am dying to give it a crack. In fact, it's even more incentive to me to go to the next district conference in Stanthorpe. So I might give it a crack there. Even though I'm reaching out to the world, I mean, Australia is still part of the world, so I don't see why not.
Will Alicia Curtis be at your district conference?
Sorry?
Alicia Curtis, I know her, but I think she's from South Australia. Well, I know she's from South Australia.
Okay.
But and she has been a district director.
Okay.
And she goes to an awful lot of events. So
I'll keep an eye out for her.
I must mention this in case we forget it. I have a first cousin living in Brisbane.
Ah, who's that?
Well, we call him Atty O'Mahony. Atty, Anthony O'Mahony. I was thinking today, I must see if I could possibly get him to come to a Toastmasters meeting that was online, so I could be there too. So I don't know if in Brisbane you have clubs that hold meetings that are online.
We do have some, yes. I can send you some links to them.
What persuaded you to go to the international convention?
One of my clubmates, Colin Williams, made it to the semi-finals. So we were there, and quite a few of our clubmates came as well to support him. And in fact, I was invited to come along. I was only on the cusp of joining the club. I was new to the club. It was an advanced club. And they asked me, and I said, I had this expedition medicine conference around the same time, and I thought, I can't go away twice in a row, you know. And then I sort of thought about it and thought, well, I really like the people that were asking me to go. It was the 100-year anniversary, and even though Colin at that point, this is at the end of the district conference, even though he hadn't actually made it through the regionals, I thought I loved his speech so much. I think there's a very good chance he's going to be there. And I turned around sort of a few days later and said, no, sign me up, I'm in. So we went as a group, which, you know, is so much more fun when you go with a group of friends. And Colin was fabulous. But I met so many other people there. And so I'm intrigued with your podcasting once again. When you interviewed people, they were people that you hadn't met before a lot of the time?
Yes, I interviewed Danny Banks, who was the district director in District 71 while I was there. I recorded a very brief chat with Daniel Rex.
Oh, wow.
I did I met a district director who had was on her fourth time being a district director, and she came from somewhere like North Dakota.
Okay.
And, I was fascinated by, I was sitting next to her at lunch or coffee or something. So there were two of them together, and they were chatting, and I butted in, said, "Look, I'm from Ireland. I'm Paul," and then we chatted, and then I said, "Look, can I interview you? I mean, what you've done is fascinating." And she said, "Yeah." So and she knew that was the thing that was pretty remarkable over there, which was the network of people who knew each other. Now, there's a guy called Ted Corcoran.
Okay.
He was the only international president from Ireland, but he was international president in 2004 and 2005, I think. And Ted Corcoran was there, but everybody everybody of a certain position in Toastmasters knows Ted Corcoran. And so I recorded some fascinating conversation about this woman who said she owed an awful lot to Ted Corcoran. And she'd been to Ireland, and they'd met up and done things in Ireland. And, she thought, quite understandably, that this guy is extraordinary. And he is, really. And so that's the other thing, meeting people who know other people who you know.
Yeah, it's amazing. An incredible experience. Paul, do you have any tips for better communicating stories? Because I know that's an area of your expertise.
Well, of course, I immediately back away when I'm called an expert of any kind. So I'm going to say that I've been practicing telling stories since I was about 3 years old. So I've had an awful lot of practice at telling stories.
Yep.
And one of the things I learned an awful long time ago was that you don't have to tell the truth when you're telling a story. Now, there are situations where it's crazy if you don't tell the truth. If you're telling your mother that it wasn't you who broke open the packets of jelly and took out the football cards out of the jelly packets. And you're well known for being the person who collects these. I mean, you ain't going to get very far by telling her the story that, oh, yeah, somebody broke into the house and they must have been after jelly. No, but in truth, so first of all, yeah, as I say, a story doesn't have to be totally true.
Sure.
It does help if the audience can be sucked into the story so that they've kind of bought into it.
Sure.
But I'd say one thing about stories: why do you want to tell a story? And sometimes I think that people think, oh yeah, it's good to tell a story. But why? Oh yeah, people will remember it if you tell a story. But why should people remember your story? What is it about your story that makes it worth somebody remembering? Was it a very funny incident that happened to you? Well, that'll be forgotten in a week. There's so many funny incidents going around society. There are stories to be found everywhere. So I think that the first thing any storyteller in Toastmasters needs to think about, anyone who's going to use stories, is why? What is the thing that I want people to do after I have told my story? What is it I want them to remember? What is it I want them to understand? And what is it I want them to do after my story? And, it could be anything. You might want them to go away and ring you up that afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Talk again. Go away and tell 5 people that you're well worth booking as a speaker for the next conference. But being clear about what you want people to do. And then there's a difference between wanting people to do something that I would call kind of trivial, small,
Mm-hmm.
tiny. And then there's the other kind, which is to transform the way in which they behave.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm working at the moment, thank you for asking me this question, on the idea that the very best stories that you could hear in Toastmasters really are very like parables.
Mm.
There is a message that the person wants to put across. Anything, Good Samaritan, maybe you know about parable of the Good Samaritan, right? Some poor fella's on the side of the road in a terrible bad way. 2 people walk past, very high up and very knowledgeable. They ignore him. The 3rd person comes along and picks him up and does good things for him. And that person is called the Good Samaritan. And the message is really that you're a good person if you don't walk past somebody who's in need.
Mm-hmm.
Take that into your life then as a, something that has been put across to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be put across in 100 different ways. And you leave that presence with the speaker with a real intention of not passing by people who are in need. And there's a good chance that you will either on your way home go and talk to somebody who is in need, or go home, if you have children, talk to your children and talk to them about the importance of being present for people who are lonely, who have been abandoned. It's pretty profound if you can influence somebody to do that. And that's where I'm grappling at the moment with the importance of being so clear about why you're going to tell a story. And in my opinion, the best place to start is what effect do you want to have on the audience? And then select the story that you're going and construct the story, which will get that message across. Now, of course, if all you want to do is to, amuse the audience and give them a nice opportunity to smile, and smiling and laughing is a very good thing, you can achieve that without having a big, profound message attached to it. It can just be great fun. There are also professional storytelling organizations. I call them professional. There are storytelling associations or organizations. I don't know if there's one in Australia. I know there is the national one in the United States. Huge. And there are storytelling clubs. I don't think Toastmasters was set up to be a storytelling club. It wasn't set up to be a place where you tell stories. It was set up to be a place where you change lives. And okay, you use stories to change lives, but you don't just do it to amuse people.
Yeah.
And also, remember, Ralph C. Smedley set up Toastmasters to help people have a better life, get jobs that they wouldn't otherwise have got. And he, in his writings, talked about the purpose of Toastmasters was to equip individuals so that they would bring about a better society. So we're actually talking about social impact of what you gain in Toastmasters.
Yeah.
So this is a lot more than, an interesting story. It has to carry something that's really meaningful. and that is worth your while
Yeah.
going public, putting your reputation on the line, expressing yourself in the strongest, clearest way in order to help other people. A huge act of generosity, but also of vulnerability.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, and I certainly understand what you mean, because I've certainly sat in on speeches, and I've been guilty of this myself, where you have an amusing story from your life and you tell it, and then you get to the conclusion, and then you're sort of looking for some sort of message or meaning to wrap it up, and it can sound a bit contrived. But I love it's almost like reverse engineering. I love the idea of having a message to deliver, that being the starting point, and then either drawing from your own experience or making up a story to illustrate the point you're trying to make. So that's brilliant. And I think it's a really good message that I've taken on board from that, because it can be so powerful, can't it? The impact of a good message told well in a good story.
Oh, yeah. And, there are tremendous illustrations of different types of stories used for different purposes. But the really great ones are very profound. I'll never forget Danaraya Hetarachi from Sri Lanka. I never saw him live, but he did a speech called I See Something in 2014. It won the World Championship that year. And he has a phrase in that, which I wonder if you've ever heard it. It's a bit like, it goes like this. I see something in you, but I don't know what it is.
I like that.
And that phrase is, for me, the most memorable phrase that any speaker in Toastmasters has ever delivered. Now, it's a recurring phrase, and he puts it in a story, about 3 or 4 stories of bits of his life.
I see. Yep.
But the whole idea was that I'm quite sure that my guess is that he began with, I'm going to give these people something that will enable them to influence other people to become greater than they are.
I love that. Yeah.
I'm going to help people to support others and motivate them and encourage them. And, if somebody said to you or to me, I see something.
Yes.
I see something in you, Brendan.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. But they were somebody who, in some way, you looked up to or you respected, and you would say, well, what does she or he, see in me? Maybe there is something in me that I haven't even noticed.
100%. So much of how we get on and how we achieve things is dependent on the stories we tell ourselves and our self-belief, doesn't it? If we have self-belief, the sky's the limit. If we have a lot of self-doubt, then I think that really holds you back. So I think that's brilliant. It reminds me, and I must go and see that. I see something in you. I love that. I must go back and find that. It does remind me of Harriet Tinker's speech from the semi-finals of the Anaheim World Championships. And I interviewed her in an earlier podcast. Her speech was Sawubona, which is an African Zulu word meaning I see you, therefore you exist. So it's a similar concept, I think. And I think that was really incredibly powerful as well, I found.
I don't think I saw her.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. You must watch it.
Maybe I was in the other.
Yeah, that's what happens, exactly. You can't see them all at the same time because they are happening at the same time. Paul, I've got another question for you. I've read on your profile you've made some mistakes. I'd love to know what mistakes you've made and what you've learnt from them.
Oh, my goodness. Which profile did I say I'd made mistakes on?
On LinkedIn, there was something about mistakes you've made and what you've learnt from them. Maybe it was other people's mistakes. I'm not sure.
Oh, my goodness. No. Mistakes I've learned from. I was running this is going back a few years. I used to be a management development trainer. And I worked in London Transport. And myself and another guy, Tony Hogan, were leading a whole series of management development training courses for people who had survived a downsizing. So they hadn't become redundant in their jobs. It was a huge restructuring, and new teams were being set up. And Tony and I began the first morning of the first group. I think there were maybe 8 people on this course, and there were 2 trainers. And I remember a couple of things. One is I remember that I drank a whole jug of black coffee in the first hour. Clearly, I was nervous. I was sick.
Wouldn't go through all with
we got to the break, and Tony, who was a terrifically talented general manager of a bus depot, not really a trainer. I was the one trainer, but we were working together. He knew the business of running bus services inside out. And he managed about 700 people in a big depot, a whole load of drivers and engineers and supervisors and stuff. And we had a break after about an hour. And he said to me, "Paul, you gotta loosen up. You gotta loosen up. You've been so serious in that hour." This is maybe not the words he used, but he made me aware that I was tight, that I wasn't getting rapport with the people who I was training with him.
Yeah.
Now, he was better at getting rapport with people than I ever was. And I do my best, but it made me aware very quickly that I hadn't struck the right note. So is that a mistake? Yes. I hadn't really addressed beforehand enough about how am I going to get rapport with these people. I knew it. I was very serious.
Yeah.
Very serious about the purpose of management, the purpose of the business, all of these kind of things that come relatively easy to me because my brain works. I can think about the purpose of a business and the strategy and the plans and all that stuff. But I was actually talking to people who were supervisors and managers who hadn't been to university, weren't used to looking at strategic plans, weren't used to drawing up plans and budgeting and stuff like this. And I changed that. So that was I suppose you call that a mistake. I made a more profound mistake in a Toastmasters club once, where I became the president of the club. And there was an issue which hadn't been resolved in the club committee the previous year. And I'd been on the club committee the previous year. And, okay, I'll just put it this way. Somebody did something which I knew, if you like, and I was so certain was absolutely against the rules, the governing documents, against thing. And it, in a sense, it couldn't be allowed to happen. And I don't want anyone to be able to identify people who were involved in this because they're all still alive.
Sure.
But it was so serious that the issue got sorted out.
Mm-hmm.
I did the right thing by the rules.
Sure.
And I checked with people to make sure that I wasn't a misinterpretation of the rules. Mm-hmm. And I insisted that there be certain types of votes taken, mm-hmm. and that nothing could be done until the club members had approved mm-hmm. a motion at an extraordinary general meeting. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I did everything by the book. And ever since then, I've been wondering, the guy left the club.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I lost a golf partner. I lost somebody who I enjoyed having a drink with. Mm-hmm. I lost a lot, and the club lost an enormous amount.
Mm.
There must have been a better way of handling it than the way in which I handled it. No, I was angry. I was cross to have been left with this issue. It wasn't all that nice to be the incoming president and to inherit an issue.
Yes.
Which was from the past and that I wished had been finished with the previous year. And it, you know, it did. I mean, okay, you know, I'm not saying that how I felt, but I do actually believe, and I follow rules. You know, if it says in the governing documents that this is what has to be done, if it says club members have to vote on something, then that is what they have to do. Yeah. Not, look, we don't have to put it, you know, we can just decide this in the committee.
Yeah.
Committees actually have, you know, relatively little ability to make significant decisions on behalf of the club. They have to get the support. And that's all written down. And I've had a few situations where I've had to try to persuade somebody, not just then, but other times. So, I mean, I could carry on. Well, that was whatever I did. I now would say to myself, do a better checking. What could happen as a result of this issue, which would be very, very undesirable for everybody, and then try to find a way around that to get the right kind of result. Use different language. Different language. So often it is the language
and the impact and the way people feel respond to that,
and to anticipate how somebody else will take your language. That demands a lot of emotional intelligence and goodness knows. And we do come across people who are wonderful at navigating that.
Sure.
But, you know, all I can say is that it's a life's work for me.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you're dealing with people's feelings, aren't you? Trying to navigate. It sounds tricky, though.
You're dealing with other people's feelings and you have your own feelings.
Of course, yeah, that's right.
And you know how to find a communication which will not involve you, you know, compromise isn't the right word, but, you know, retreating and leaving yourself with, oh God, I've just totally capitulated, we'll say. But also talking in a way that you're not going to cause them to lose face. And that's it.
Yeah.
Losing face.
Yes.
I came across that idea in a book by James Clavell.
Yes.
And I think the book might have been Noble House. But the idea that in where do I mean? China.
Yes.
I think it's China.
It is.
Japan actually as well. Yeah. But to lose face and to behave in such a way that the person you might be debating with or trying to sort out an issue with doesn't lose face.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's eating and drinking in that issue, isn't there?
That's right. Like in Chinese culture, there's also giving face. You can give face. And a classic example where this arises is when you have a group of people sharing a meal, they'll often fight over who gets to pay for the meal, wanting to pay. And, there's a bit of a fight going on. And a classic thing for one to say that's insisting on paying is, gay war mienza, gay war mienza. Gay war mienza means give me face. And so, in other words, if you allow the person to pay, you're allowing them to then have face. So it's a very interesting concept, I think, in their culture. But yeah, they're very big on face.
Yeah, and I used to be very political. If I go right back into, my student days and maybe 10 or 15 years after that. So I got into a particular style of arguing with people, very much a political style, in which you were looking to win on an issue. Now, I'm not talking about going for parliament or anything like that, but I do recognize that I've had to overcome that disability. And I'd never been in a voluntary organization before I joined Toastmasters. And of course, when you're an employee at work and you're managing people, you do have authority and status and connections and all that sort of thing. But you don't have any of that in Toastmasters. None of it. I can't, never, even when I was whatever position I was in, I was never able to instruct anybody to do anything.
Sure.
But I was when I was at work.
Yeah.
And that has been one of my best learnings. Being in a voluntary organization, needing to practice a whole range of, I'll call it softer skills. That for me has been one of the greatest benefits that I get for anybody who hasn't, for anyone who doesn't have a lot of experience of being in a voluntary organization. The wonderful thing about Toastmasters is that you're given so many opportunities to be in a leadership position.
Yes.
Almost right from the beginning, like you're in charge of the timing. You're the one who you're leading on the timing. There's nobody else except you. We're all dependent on you. So that's a kind of leadership position. And, you do it and you need to do it carefully, etc. But it's all voluntary.
Yes.
You can't really say no to doing a role and everything. Yeah. And that, to me, that leadership part is huge in Toastmasters, huge. It's inevitable. You will be in a leadership position, within a couple of meetings.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't sound like leadership, even if you think leadership is running the country and it certainly isn't contributing to a bit of a meeting, but you'll learn, everybody learns that it is actually, these roles are leadership positions, and you get more practice in Toastmasters than you would in any other organization I can think of. I think Toastmasters is the only organization in the world that would have made me a president.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I've been in that situation. I remember when it was put to me that I could be president of the club, and I was thinking the same thing. I've never been a president of anything. Okay, why not give it a shot? But it reminds me of what you're saying in a simple analogy when you're talking about companies versus a voluntary organization. I guess if you're in a leadership position in a company, you've got the carrot and the stick, and you might not necessarily want to use the stick, but it's there. Whereas in the voluntary organization, you've only got the carrot. There's no stick involved. So it really practices the carrot skills, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
As a final question, Paul, because you're a more experienced podcaster, do you have any advice for me on podcasting?
Well, I have to say again that I've listened to your first, I'm convinced now it's 4 episodes. And I'm full of admiration. So I will just say a couple of things I admire First of all, the music you use at the beginning of the podcast speaks of strength, and here's a place where there is going to be, which needs to be respected and has got strength in it. So wherever you chose that music, to me, it's strong. And that is good because most people, maybe not everybody, most people want to put their trust that this is going to be worthwhile. So, you come across that. So that's great. You have a great, strong, well, it's not just strong voice. You have a voice that is worth listening to.
Well, thank you.
And in your podcast, you do something which is done terribly well. You contribute a lot in the podcast. So I've noticed that in the early episodes, anyway, you were, asking somebody a question. They would say something, and then you would come in, and there'd be a development of the point between you. And that's the style of podcast. And I really admire the consistency of the style you used, rather than it being eclectic. Okay, one of the episodes was particularly short, but that's not the point. The style, the communication style was consistent, and that means that an audience will know what to expect, and they'll be pleased with themselves when they get what they expected. That's always if somebody gets what they thought they were going to get, they even feel good about themselves because they think, oh, at some level, yeah, I'm very bright. I realized it was going to be like this. I figured him out. What to do. This is about the hardest question anybody's asked me, because I spent, a good deal of today admiring your podcast. Okay, I'll tell you. You're very good at terrific sound quality, studio standard stuff. Go out in the street and do some street podcast. Now, this is only because obviously, you can say, hey, this is me as a podcaster. But if you actually, that's a bit like in golf, I play a very good 5-iron. And someone says to you, about time you got a 6-iron. Got able to use a 6-iron. And then if you were terribly good at golf, like I think Sevi Ballesteros, what course is, you'll try playing out of a bunker with a 7-iron, getting it up and down. And you got all these other things to try. So if anybody, I'll say this to anybody, if somebody goes into the art and craft of podcasting, they might well carry in an assumption about this is what a podcast is. This is what it's like. And it isn't, because there's so many different types of podcast. And I'm only thinking you're so clear about what you're doing. I see now. Okay, I know that you're in your professional life, you look after people's skin. Now, people's skin is pretty important, and you can't be making huge mistakes when you're dealing with somebody's skin. Correct me if I've got it wrong, but I remember you saying on your podcast that I'm a skin specialist. I forget the exact role, but yeah. And I'm saying, look, you're precise. You know what you're doing. You're clear, and that's great strength. Do some messy podcasting.
Okay, sure. I love that. I will absolutely 100% take you up on that. And I'm looking at the district conference now, thinking that's an opportunity to go and grab some people maybe before they go on. Maybe not right before they go on, but before they go on, and then maybe a before and after style thing might be an idea. How did you feel you went? They didn't do so well. Maybe they'll run away from me, run away and hide. I don't know, but I'm definitely interested in taking that up.
Yeah, I mean, reporters do this. They sometimes doorstop people. They literally knock on the door. Somebody opens the door and they have a microphone. And the person doesn't want to talk to them. So they talk to the person. Now, you can go to the conference and you can, have your microphone, however you do it, and go up to somebody and just simply say, I'm Brendan O'Sullivan from this podcast. I'm here to ask you a question about your views on the Toastmaster world. Where have you been to in Toastmasters? Have you been to any other district conferences?
Yep.
And you don't ask their permission. You just speak to them. Yeah, but what it does, of course, is that it means that you've kind of barged in on top of somebody.
Yeah.
And you could screw it up by not being pleasant, but you can use your skills to entice, to have people being glad. This guy is quite interesting, and that's different from asking permission. Can I interview you on Thursday week or anything like that? So, but you asked me a question which really got me to think hard.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm really going to take you up on that. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor, and I look forward to catching up with you again in the future.
Brendan, thank you very much for a very enjoyable conversation.
Gaurav Maragat.
Gaurav Milamagut. Tagama.
Thanks for listening to today's show. One of the key elements of Toastmasters is evaluations. This is how we grow and improve, both by encouraging comments for things we got right and points for improvement. We all learn and benefit from these evaluations, not just the person being evaluated. So any feedback in the comments is greatly appreciated. If you have a Toastmasters story you'd like to share or would like to be on the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at toastmastersworldtour@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.